Welcome back to Wellness Wave Radio. Thanks for tuning in this morning to ride the wave with us. Each week our goal is to give you at least one suggestion that will make your life a little better. My name is Phil George. I'm a clinical biochemist, a certified personal trainer, and a health coach. Please remember, everything we discussed on the show is for informational purposes only and should not be taken as medical advice. Always seek the guidance of your medical professional. So today we're going to talk about, I think, probably one of the most important topics, the most important part of your body, something called mitochondria. Now, you may have not thought about this for quite a while, but even in grammar school, I think they think about mitochondria. And if you remember, when I do seminars, one of the things I ask, mitochondria, a lot of people raise their hand and they all know it's the powerhouse of the cell. But just like any other energy source, it's something you have to be really familiar with, because if your mitochondria is not working, in fact, the show right before this, we normally produce two shows back to back because it takes a while to set this stuff up, so it's easier just to do back-to-back shows. So I had Dr. Donna Bartlett on the show before this, and she teaches at the Mass School of Pharmacy, but I've talked to a lot of medical professionals. I have a lot of medical professionals on my show, and most of them agree. The real problem that most people have is something called mitochondrial dysfunction. Again, mitochondria, the powerhouse of the cell. It gives you your energy. So what's happened with mitochondria, it's called mitochondrial dysfunction. It's not working correctly. I don't have slides with me, but I'm doing a presentation on myself, actually, and Kelly Hamilton, ICU nurse. I teamed up with Kelly, and she's a holistic nutritionist. We're going down and giving a presentation in Plainville, and I have a whole slideshow set up for this in terms of mitochondria. And one of the slides I have, if you remember the old Energizer bunny for the Energizer batteries, and it's, he's going along, and then eventually he's going fast, then he slows down. That's kind of, your mitochondria is kind of the batteries. It's what makes you go. And it's really, really important. And one of the things they found out is, in terms of dementia or brain fog and stuff like that, is one of the big issues is your mitochondria is not working correctly. It's not producing enough power. Now, there's two main energy hogs in your body. The one of them is your heart, because your heart, if your heart's the most important thing. If your heart stops, you're dead. So that's the number one use, because it's beating all the time. That's the number one use of mitochondria. The second most is your brain. Now, your brain makes up only 2% of your total body mass, but it takes up 20% of your energy. So your brain is really compacted with a lot of mitochondria, because the mitochondria basically has to keep your brain going. I used to play a lot of chess, and what they found out was, when I used to play tournament chess, and one of the things I did is I knew that if I could make my opponent play a really, really long time, eventually the power in his brain is going to start going down. They're going to make a mistake, and that's what will happen. If you've ever had to get a good night's sleep and had to do something that's very mentally taxing, you're going to find out your brain doesn't work very well, because it's using up 20% of your energy. In fact, the whole thing is, remember, if you go out, your old wives' tale, actually it's not old wives' tale, it's true. In the cold weather, if you go outside, you want to put a hat on because you're producing so much heat coming out of your head. So that's what's happening. So mitochondria is basically producing all of this energy. It's for your muscles or anything else. So if you think about it, if you're in a gym, you're going out for a long walk and you're getting really, really tired, then your mitochondria is wearing out. Obviously, as we age, the mitochondria is not working as well. You can have a 20-year-old kid doing the marathon, no problem. You get a 60-year-old trying to do the same thing. They're going to have a lot harder time. So that's why mitochondria is so important. There was a really good show on Netflix called Ozarks, and if you've seen that, there was a scene where they had this elderly couple, and the husband and wife were disagreeing on what to do with the land, and she didn't want to give up the land, I think, and he did. And so she decided she was going to kill him. And one of the things he really used to love was peach pie. And she used to bake peach pie. Well, a lot of people don't realize, but inside of a peach pit is arsenic. There's an expression in toxicology, is dose makes the poison. So a little bit of arsenic. There's arsenic, and probably heard this, in white rice, there's arsenic. And a lot of people eat white rice. Obviously, they're not dying, because your body is pretty good at detoxing, so it can get rid of the arsenic. But obviously, in large doses, arsenic will kill you. And the way arsenic kills you, it shuts down your mitochondria, and your body runs out of energy and you die. So what she did with him is she made him a peach cobbler, and it takes a while to digest, the peach cobbler. And she ground up all the peach pits and got huge amounts of arsenic, and she put it in his peach cobbler. And they're walking through the woods, and he's in pretty good shape. And I remember the scene. They're in the woods, and he looks at her, puts his hand on his. If you've seen this scene, you know what I'm talking about. He puts his hands on his chest, and she says, "Honey," she says, "take it easy. It's going to be a quick death." And it was. He lay down, and he said, "I've got the woman's name, Mary. What did you do?" She says, "Honey, we can't give up the land. This land's in our family, and this is what we're going to do." So, arsenic can kill you, and the way it kills you, it basically what it does is it shuts down your mitochondria. I'm going to get into a little of the biochemistry here, but the way it works with mitochondria, you have something called the electron transport chain. It's also called the Krebs cycle, or it's also called the citric acid cycle. So all that means is, in order to make energy, there's 4 complexes in the electron transport chain. It goes along, and it's what it says, electrons. So think about it just like energy in electrical. All electricity is electrons passing through a wire back and forth. And what it does is you get enough electricity, and what it'll do is it'll power the lights. My lights here, everything else. I live in Worcester, and when we had that big heat wave, we were running our air conditioners, full tilt. And what would happen in the middle of the night, everything would shut down. Okay, fortunately we have a generator. The generator would kick in and kick it back on again. So all the power was going. It's called a brownout. In California, they have this all the time because they don't make enough electricity. So they would have to have what they call rolling brownouts or blackouts, where they would just shut things down. Or if you had an outage, where a squirrel gets into the line and breaks the line, you have no electricity. That's what's happened with your mitochondria. It works the same way. It's called the electron transport. Electrons, the little negatively charged ions, they go across to these different complexes, and the faster they go, the more energy you make. So if you have a disruption in this electron transport chain, then you're going to be losing energy. So one of the most common complaints that patients have with doctors is they have no energy. And the reason they have no energy is because they have dysfunctional mitochondria. The mitochondria are not producing enough power. If your brain's not working correctly, you're not producing enough power. If your heart's not working correctly, you're not producing enough power. The mitochondria, you have millions, I think maybe even trillions of mitochondria in every single cell of your body, except, this is a good Trivial Pursuit question, or who wants to be a millionaire? The only cell in your body that doesn't have mitochondria are your red blood cells, because they have to carry oxygen and carbon dioxide. They need that space for there. But other than that, your muscles, everything in your body has mitochondria. You have a lot of muscle, hopefully. If a lot of muscle, again, you get tired, you get aches and pains. I'll give you a good example. So the very first seminar I gave up at the Senior Center, the Commonwealth of Mass, they brought me in basically, and I was giving seminars. And I do the dog and pony show. I have the slides and everything else. So I was planning on doing, but I give a lot of presentations. In fact, if you ever wanted me to give a presentation, you have a group, you have we're doing presentations for the Parkinson's, for Alzheimer's, all kinds of. I did it. The VA hired me. I did it for VA people, all kinds. So I have a presentation, a slideshow for just about everything. Done a bunch of them actually on Lester Cable here. But I kind of like doing this because I kind of feel like, this is the way I talk to a client. I explain this to a client, so I'm seeing you as my client. So I'm talking to you directly. So that's the problem. The electrons have to go across in a very specific sequence. It's called, these are four different complexes. They call complexes in electron transport chain. If any of those complexes get slowed down, you're not producing, electrons aren't passing through, and you're not making energy. So the very first seminar I gave, I was going to do an on magnesium, and I was all set up to go. And I had people in the audience, and basically they started asking me questions, and a lot of them asked me, they said, look, I'm taking this statin. Statin is what you take for high cholesterol. But I got all these aches and pains all the time, and and I'm having trouble sleeping and blah blah blah. On my laptop, I had a whole presentation I did on statins. So I stopped I reconfigured everything. I said, okay, look, everybody's interested in statins. Why don't we do cholesterol and statins? I did a presentation actually on Lester Cable. I used that particular slideshow. I may do it again because it's a pretty popular topic. So what I did is I put it on, and I explained to the audience the reason why they were having these aches and pains. So one of the problems with statins, with the way it reduces your cholesterol, and I had Donna Bartlett. The show we did before here was Donna Bartlett. She's a pharmacist, and I talked to her after we left, in fact, and that's one of the things we talked about. So she understands that she's a pharmacist. This is what they call mechanism of action. So when I see a client, I don't, they have a problem. I want to know what's called the mechanism of action. Since I'm a biochemist, I understand biochemistry. I understand how the body works and what happens with it. So I was able to explain to the audience the reason why she's having these aches and pains. And the very first complex, remember there's 4 complexes in the electron transport chain in the mitochondria, powerhouse of the cell, makes energy, is something called ubiquinone. Now ubiquinone, you probably never heard of that. You may have heard of ubiquinol, and the precursor to ubiquinol is CoQ10. So what happens is, in order to get that electron transport chain to go down that whole complex, you need, it has to start off with this ubiquinone, which is really CoQ10. It's a very bioactive form of CoQ10. And what happened, it messes up that, so it doesn't function correctly. So the CoQ10, the ubiquinone, cannot push those electrons along, so it slows it up. You have tons of mitochondria in your muscles. You get the most amount of muscle in your what's called your quadriceps, which are your thigh muscles. Not the most, actually the second most. The most is in your glutes, your butt muscles. A lot, and because we're bipeds, we walk along, we're evolutionary, we're designed to have most of our muscles there. In fact, interesting study on healthy aging. One of the signs of healthy aging is very strong muscles in your legs, okay? Because, to survive, we have to run away from the tiger. We've only lived like this for the last couple hundred years. We've been around for millions of years, so we're used to running away from things. So that's why we're hardwired to have a lot of mitochondria in our leg muscles. So what happens is, because you have so many mitochondria in your muscles, in your quadriceps and your glutes, that's why they'll be getting all these aches and pains, because the ATP was not able to fire up to produce the muscles, to make the muscles go. And that's one of the problems with the statins. Now, there's a lot of different statins out there. So again, the Donna Bartlett, Dr. Donna, the pharmacist, if you were to see her, and if you want to have a complete rehab or relook at all of your meds, Donna will do that for you. You can email me, philgeorge@charter.net. I'll shoot it over to Donna, and she can, do a rehab, revisit all your meds. But there are different types of statins, so they may have to put you on a different statin that maybe doesn't affect your CoQ10 as much. But what my opinion is that if you're taking a statin, you need to take CoQ10 with it, because what it is, because it's breaking down the CoQ10, you want to put more CoQ10 into there, and a lot of times that will take care of your aches and pains. The women in there saying, why didn't anybody ever tell me this? Again, because this is biochemistry. I'm a biochemist. This is what I know. Not that doctors don't know this, but maybe for whatever reasons they don't do it. So you want to take CoQ10 with any supplement. And one of the things I do with clients, supplements are a tricky business. A lot of these are made in China, India. You don't know what's in them. You have no idea. So you could be thinking you're taking CoQ10, but it could be something else, or could not be enough CoQ10 inside of there. So email me, philgeorge@charter.net. I sit down with clients all the time, and what I do is I go over their entire, all of the supplements. More importantly, I go over all your lab work to see what's going on. That's why I'm a clinical biochemist. My degree is in clinical biochemistry, understanding lab work. I mentioned it to Dr. Don, I train physicians in terms of lab protocol and how to read different lab results. So CoQ10, you'll see that on the shelf, but the more bioactive, the one that works better is something called ubiquinol, and that's more bioactive. But in fact, I do a lot of research. I just found out they came up with even better form of this ubiquinol. It's even more bioactive. So if you're taking ubiquinol or ubiquinone, email me, philgeorge@charter.net. I can give you a better version of this, and I have a trusted site that I get it from. In fact, what I do now, I have a new paradigm. And when I meet with clients, instead of paying me X amount of dollars, which I used to charge money because my time obviously is worth something, I'll do the consult with you for free, go over your lab work, supplements. I give you a choice. You can either you can pay me. This is dirt cheap. I was only charging $65 for an hour for the consult, but now I'm giving you an option. You don't even have to pay me the $65. All you need to do is, if you need the supplements anyway, buy it from my website. As long as you spend at least $50, because it's $50 for free shipping, I'll give you the consult for free, and I get a commission from this website. So I think it's a win-win. I help you, I get paid, and the company pays me. So and again, more than that, I'm a certified personal trainer. I can go over your training with you. It's kind of one-stop shopping. I can go over your lab work, also in terms of your supplements and things like that. So I'm getting off topic here, but that's basically, so you want to do, so many people, I think statin is the #1 most prescribed drug. I think antidepressants are. I think I should have asked Dr. Don on that. Right behind that is statins. So a lot of people are on statins. So if you're on statins, you want to be taking a CoQ10, but a bioactive form. Again, see me. In fact, if you're on statins, we may want to review your lipids. You may not even have to be on statins, because there's different types of lipids out there. So a lot of times they just see your cholesterol is elevated and they put you on a statin. You may not even need to be on a statin. Again, not medical advice. I'll go over with you. I have, again, slide presentations for this. So going back to the electron transport chain. So if you have any kind of a mess up in there, any one of these 4 complexes, you're not producing enough energy. Remember the electrical grid? You're not producing enough. Another good example I like, in your household you have 2 types of current. You have 120 volt and a 220. If you remember the 220 volt, you have that 3-prong thingamajiggy that you plug into the wall, but you may have a very specific outlet. Like if you have a refrigerator, if you have something that takes up a lot of energy, it has to be on a 220 volt. You have to, otherwise you'll blow a circuit, you'll blow a fuse, and you've had that happen. You have to put a new fuse in or click it. I've had that happen a couple of times. You're having too many things running at one time, you're going to blow a fuse. That, again, the analogy is with the mitochondria. You're trying, your body, like the poor women that were on the statins with the legs, the muscle is asking for more and more energy. The mitochondria can't do it, and she blows the fuse, and she has the muscle cramp. That's a good analogy. You're blowing the fuse on the muscle, and the muscle can't do it, can't deal with it anymore. And even a lot of times you can get muscle cramps from this, just because, again, your muscles use a lot of energy. Or the other thing interesting about mitochondria is mitochondria actually, again, we have trillions in our body, every single cell except for your red blood cells. They found out, I'm into a new thing now, basically called quantum biology. You may have heard of quantum physics. Einstein called it spooky science. It's what happens on a very molecular level. And they're applying that now. You can get a PhD in quantum biology. And what they're finding out, basically the light, mitochondria give off of what they call photons, which are light particles. and they talk to one another. They go back and forth. So they're communicating because mitochondria want to keep you alive. So they're talking back and forth. So let's just say you have a really stressful day, or again, what's happening is the statin's messing up your mitochondria, and you can't produce it. What happens is the mitochondria, and because remember the two most important parts of your body keeping alive is your heart. When your heart stops, you stop, and your brain. So it's gonna push all of the energy basically into your brain, into your heart. So what happens with that is the mitochondria maybe in your I don't know, in your pinky. It may say, okay, I'm taking the energy out of here, and I'm gonna put the energy up. I'm gonna shut this down. It's kind of like the shutdown on a power grid. I'm gonna shut down these particular muscle to give enough energy to my brain and to my heart. So they're finding out through this quantum biology that the mitochondria is not isolated. The mitochondria talk to each other and letting you know what's going on. So the number one complaint people have when they go to a doctor, I have no energy. That you have no energy because all the energy is being used in your brain and in your heart. Okay, because it wants to keep you alive. So what you want to do is you want to ramp up the mitochondria, and there's lots of ways to do that. That's one of the things I do with clients. I'll sit down with them, look at their diet, look at their supplements. The first thing I'm going to do, even if you're not on a statin, I'm going to put you on a good source of ubiquinol, CoQ10, because again, that's the very first part of the electron transport chain. You've got to get that going. The last part, not to get too technical, too sciencey here. People joke with me. I get too sciencey sometimes. So I'll give you some fancy words, but I'll explain what it means. So the fourth complex electron transport plane, the fourth part of the electron transport chain is something called cytochrome C oxidase. Fancy word. But what it means basically is that's the last part. In the seminar I did is, you guys have probably seen out in the ocean and stuff, these wind turbines, these like the four things, they go around and around, and what happens is the wind hits it and it goes around. So the faster that turbine goes, they had this off of Cape Cod, they have them sticking out there, and because there's wind coming off the ocean, so that's a good source of wind, good source of energy. And on my slide I show these, and I show going, and then at the top of the slide it says no wind equals no energy. If you don't have any wind, you're not making any electricity, you're not making any energy. Then I have another slide right afterwards showing the electrons hitting the wind, hitting these turbines and going around. Again, no electrons or slow electrons. So the faster that wind turbine, faster the wind turbine turns, that's a mouth twister. Makes it go faster and faster. So you want those electrons going through that electron transport chain like crazy, fast. So when it hits that last part, think about turbines. The cytochrome C oxidase is like a turbine, goes around and around. The electrons hit that, and it makes it go around fast. So the faster it goes, the more energy you're producing. So assuming that complex 1, where you have the CoQ10. Actually, it's called ubiquinone, going at the more energy, but then it has to hit. One of the things interesting they found, again, with this quantum biology, we're kind of tied to the sun. We have circadian rhythms tied to the sun. We also, our body gives off internal light. If you've ever seen, those near-infrared cameras that they have at night, where you can see people walking, your body actually gives off heat. It gives off near-infrared heat. That's why they can see you at night through these infrared goggles. There's an interesting thing. Tom Brady, and actually I'm crazy, and if I bought this, you give off near-infrared light when you sleep. Your body's constantly giving off heat all the time. That's the reason why if it's cold outside, you're giving off heat through your head and everything else. So Tom Brady used to wear these, I don't know if he probably still does, this insulating underwear. It's like like pajamas. And what it would do is the infrared light that came off of his skin would get pushed back into his skin, so he would absorb the light. And actually, I have a pair of those pajamas. So in other words, it's going back in, and what it's doing is, because remember the cytochrome C oxidase, the last part of the electron transport chain that turns the turbines, it's turning them even faster because the light's being reabsorbed into it. Okay, so that's what's happened. So light really activates that cytochrome C oxidase, the fourth part of the electron transport chain, the fourth part of it. So with the presentation we're giving for Alzheimer's and for Parkinson's, because they're both brain disorders, there's a thing, basically, there's a new type of science. It's called, another fancy word, photobiomodulation, PBM. What that means, photo is light, biology, modulation just means light affecting biology. And I'm affiliated with this company. It's called V-Light, and this is what we're doing. And in fact, I'll do a whole show on this. I have the actual helmet and I wear it. So, and they've done studies. So what this near infrared, it's basically, it's a very particular frequency. It's around 850 nanometers. That just means the particular wavelength of the light. And what it does is we wear this helmet, and I'll bring it in as I have when I do the presentation, I have this bust, the head bust, and I put it on the head so you can see it. And it also goes into your nose because also your nose is very close to your brain. It's direct. That's why people do cocaine. They sniff through their nose, goes right into their brain. A lot of times people will sniff things that goes right into the brain because there's not much distance between here and there. So you have it in your nose and you have it on your head. So what this particular device does, this is a medical device out of Canada. And the way it started off, they found out that it actually works. So the light penetrates the brain. Remember, the brain is a huge storage of mitochondria. It actually, the light penetrates into the brain, hits the mitochondria in the brain, and it ramps up that cytochrome C oxidase, the windmill, gets it going like crazy. So that's what they're doing with people with dementia, Parkinson's, PTSD, all kinds of different things, because again, it's mitochondrial dysfunction. Your mitochondria are not working correctly. So it like supercharges that windmill to keep it going, in terms of the devices, making them going faster and faster. So what they used to do in Canada, they'd have clinics, and they would go into the clinic and they'd put these things on their head, and they'd sit there, and it's about a 20 minute. It goes on. It's on time. It goes on for 20 minutes. I do this every other day. So I actually do this for my brain because I'm, good to have a strong brain. But if you know somebody that has, we're starting up, Kelly and myself are starting up a thing. If you want me to give a presentation, you can, anybody that's got a group, even older people, obviously cognition is important. People start losing their cognition as they age. This can help with your cognition a lot. So it's an expensive device. So what we're looking to do is to turn around and maybe lease it to people on a monthly basis. So you don't have to buy the whole thing. We're going to be meeting with a lot of home health agencies in the next few months for their clients. So their clients, they're obviously they're homebound and they have aides. So what we're proposing, if you know somebody with a home health agency, have them contact me, philgeorge@charter.net. So we would have the aides put this helmet on them for half an hour and see what happens. Again, I'm a biochemist. There's tons of research behind this. I just study thousands of studies on this. So you have nothing to lose. You basically you rent it from us. So they got the thing we got to be stopping. So if you have any questions, email me, philgeorge@charter.net. If you're looking at that photobiomodulation, you want to know about mitochondria, you want to ramp up your supplements, email me, philgeorge@charter.net. We'll be back next week. If you have any topics you want covered, email me, philgeorge@charter.net, and we'll do the topic. Thanks for tuning in. Hopefully this give you at least one suggestion that made your life a little better. One of the most common questions I'm asked as a biochemist and health coach is, what are the best supplements to take? Choosing supplements is a tricky business. Many companies have poor quality control and questionable ingredients. In the past, I had to send clients to several different websites. I am now able to offer one-stop shopping for all the quality brands I recommend with no shipping cost and a lower price in most cases. Just email me, philgeorge@charter.net for a free consult.